Todd Monken is already finding himself in head coaching conversations just 5 weeks into the 2024 season. We talk about that, the latest updates on Davante Adams, a wrap up on week 5, and look ahead to week 6 for this Baltimore Ravens team. All that and more coming up next here on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every day, free and available. All podcasting platforms, including video form on YouTube and audio form wherever you get your shows. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens brought to you by PrizePicks. And for PrizePicks, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code lowercase LockedOn. You win $50 instantly when you play $5. We're back here with a very special guest. It is former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver Mark Clayton in the house, or we got Mobile Mark in the house, kind of walking around there with the mobile going on, the OU swag. Mark, I'll tell you, I was a little worried that we wouldn't have a lot to talk about in this game just because of the fact that, what game we getting at? I talked with you right around the time, Saturday-ish, Friday-ish, and look, not a better game that we could talk about with that Ravens and Bengals matchup. I'm still coming down from that game. How about you?
Yeah, that was mind-blowing. It was so much going on in the game. It was like 2 weeks worth of games in one.
It was unbelievable. I mean, the Ravens are out of it, then they're not, then they're out of it, then they're not again. And it just felt like that roller coaster that this team was on. But you know what? I'm so glad it happened in a win. A loss, there have been all sorts of negative emotions, but Lamar Jackson leading that team back. And so for this game in particular for you, let's just start there before we get into the Todd Monken news. In a game like that, how much momentum does that give a team, right? It's like, you don't know if you're going to win or lose. It's such an emotional game. I think, to me, that could be the thing, because we saw them 0-2 start to the year. They come back, fight their way back to 500. How big of this was a win for them?
That's mad. I mean, and I'll start with this. You see the shirt, it's OU. We have a thing. We call it Sooner Magic. And there's something about being in a game where it looks like you're not going to win the game, or it's just not going in your favor all game, and then some way, somehow you end up winning the game. And there's a certain level of confidence and just kind of just stick to the script, just stick to things, just hack at it, and it'll work out in our favor. And God, I mean, that game right there was crazy. Like, there multiple times where it was like, all right, damn, it was so close that we just lost it, when in fact we didn't. It was like, keep hope alive and just keep playing, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it was that. It was literally magic. You know what? Sooner magic, whatever we call it, it happened in that game. You're thinking, oh man, well, that's the game right there, right? Like, how is Cincinnati going to fumble that opportunity? And literally 3 straight runs in there. McPherson misses the field goal, and the rest is history. But we'll talk a little bit more about that in the final part of the show as we wrap that up, because there was some big news, Mark, that came out yesterday about Todd Monken. Todd Monken is apparently already in head coaching conversations. We're 5 weeks into the season. We shouldn't even be having these conversations, but the New York Jets, apparently, they're the ones that have kickstarted this with the firing of Robert Saleh. And Jeremy Fowler on ESPN went on there and said Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator for Detroit, Bobby Slowick, offensive coordinator for Houston, and also Todd Monken, Baltimore's offensive coordinator, are candidates to watch and some top names to keep an eye on throughout the process. Monken's in his second season. It's like Mike McDonald, man. It's 2 years and he's gone. Like, we're already having these conversations about Todd Monken. It doesn't necessarily shock me, but could you see Todd Monken departing Baltimore for an opportunity? Because I know coordinator positions are great and not every coordinator works out as a coach. But do you feel like Todd Monken could maybe leave Baltimore, much like Mike McDonald, after just 2 seasons?
Right. Man, first of all, I'm like, Todd, stay. Please stay. Like, come on, man. They've done a tremendous job coming into Baltimore and taking Lamar and them working together to build such a dominant and I'll say efficient offense. I was happy to see Lamar drop back a little bit more and kind of really develop as a passer to me under Todd, and him giving him that opportunity. And so God, I'm like, the future is so bright. There's a lot that these two can do and grow together in. And I understand, and I don't know where Todd is. I don't know Todd like that, but I know, coaches at times they want to be the guy. They want to be the head man at some point in their career to see what it is and prove themselves that they can do it. And oftentimes they're not Bill Belichick or they're not the guy like that, but I think everybody wants to be the head guy at some point and see if they got that in their bag.
Yeah, Monken, a couple of stops at the NFL as an offensive coordinator. You got Tampa and you got Cleveland, and then obviously has had experience at both the NFL and college level. And also the fact that I think there was so much nuance to his offense and that we have seen the evolution of it from year 1 to year 2. There are a lot of questions, Mark, about just, what's this offense going to look like in year 2? How are these guys going to respond? But they return most of their players. They add Derrick Henry to that equation. Man, I don't know about you, Mark, but Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, I think it shouldn't even be allowed at the NFL level, just based off of how dominant it has been. I mean, it's everything I've expected, and just the for defensive coordinators is like, how do you defend it? How do you stop Lamar Jackson? How do you stop Derrick Henry? Todd Monken is certainly using his personnel effectively and efficiently. That's something that I love, especially with Derrick Henry in Baltimore. So how have you liked what he's done with Henry and Lamar and the run-pass balance so far with this group?
Dude, that's why he's been mentioned among those names, because I think one of the biggest and most critical pieces to being a really good coach is being able to observe the room and see what you have and then put everybody in the best position to win. And he has done that so far. He's done it in college, obviously, at Georgia. Now he's doing it in Baltimore. And this year is not disappointing us one bit. And so makes total sense. And, I'm sure there's so much more left, from Todd on the creative side and what he has planned for, the season. And as he schemes new teams each week, there's new plays, and he's so creative with it. That makes it fun to watch every week. And then we got the guys that if, the scheming, all that, or if we get into a bad play, fumble the ball, whatever, we got playmakers back there. And Lamar is essentially 1 and 2. Him and Mahomes, I think, are the best playmakers in the NFL. And then Derrick is just a force to be reckoned with. And so, we have something special right now. And the hope is that they finish out the season. Todd finishes out, Ravens OC. And we see our way to the Super Bowl. Like I said, after, week 1, we lost to KC, but just losing that game to me was just like, it was like a indicator of the fact that we got them. Like, it was a lot, but it was like, we got them. Like, we totally got them. And I just felt like, man, it's still Ravens to the Super Bowl. Don't get it twisted. It's a long season, but that was a good opening showing of where we were headed. And a loss, albeit, but nevertheless, it was a really good showing of where we were headed.
Yeah, and I think they've just evolved since then, too. Mark, we saw in that first game against Kansas City, Derrick Henry gets 5 carries on that first drive, and then they kind of use him sparingly throughout. But then we just see the evolution of, okay, now they're figuring out how to utilize Derrick Henry more. And the thing that I love is that Henry has done so much for this offense, and his presence alone is just massive. He's a massive human being himself, but the presence that he brings to the table is just like, whoa. Like, you got to be able to stop him and Lamar Jackson. And I saw, Mark, that some people were surprised that Todd Monken's being mentioned in these conversations already, but I do want to remind people that Todd Monken was mentioned in these conversations in the offseason. He was interviewed for a couple of head coaching positions already, and that was just in year 1 as an offensive coordinator for the Ravens. And so obviously you see what he's done. The rushing offense is on pace to be even more historic than 2019's was, which is unbelievable in so many other different routes. But then you look at some of the stats that Lamar Jackson has put up, Mark, through 5 weeks. He's number 2 in total yards, number 2 in adjusted yards per attempt. He's number 5 in QBR, number 4 in passing touchdowns. And so for a run-first offense, and we know that's who this Ravens team is, that's their identity. The thing that I love is that Todd Monken is encouraging Lamar. He's handing over more of the responsibilities to him. And I think that's huge because in this offense, we are starting to see it take shape around Lamar's ideas, and Todd Monken is supporting him within that. And it is more of a group effort, I would say, between Lamar and Todd Monken than we have seen in previous seasons. And you and I have talked about this before, but I think the confidence that Todd Monken has given Lamar Jackson has elevated his game even further.
Yeah, most definitely. I think Lamar has become a coach on the field, which gets really good, for a team when you have a Brady, a Manning, Breed, like those guys that have done it at a very high level and have been able to just communicate everything that's happening on the field, and them to see the same thing, together, and then, scheme up or work together to call the right plays based on what's happening in that moment. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, 100%. And, Lamar, we know that this team, Lamar has been a coaching factory. This team far before Lamar has been a coaching factory as well. So yes. Monken ends up getting a head coaching opportunity. It's obviously great for him, and I'd be super happy. But obviously, you got to then go and replace. But we got a long way to go, Mark. That's why I think it's so shocking to a lot of people. We're in week 5. The Jets made a crazy decision.
Well, come on.
And now the Ravens are pulled into it now. It's like, come on, what did the Ravens do? Like, now we have to talk about it. So
we're just
crazy.
Getting started. Like
exactly. We're literally not even a month and a half into the year.
Yeah.
And we're like, all right, well, now we got to talk about coordinators leaving and coaches leaving after they just lost like a bunch of their staff in the offseason. But Mark, it's crazy because this is not the only thing that the Jets and Ravens are tied in with, because Davante Adams has been a big topic of conversation. Could he come to Baltimore? So coming up in the second part of the show, we'll talk about the latest updates on Davante, because there has been some stuff that's come out recently that could maybe pique the Ravens' interest, but also might take them out of the running altogether. Stay tuned. Lots to get to here on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to up to 100 times your cash right in your game all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks has so many things that they have to offer, and I love going and looking on PrizePicks to see what is being added on. Plus, you can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks as little as 4 correct picks. Sign up today to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. Is guaranteed. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going to go off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds to turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. So for the Ravens and Bengals game in week 5, if you had Zay Flowers, more receiving yards, Lamar Jackson, more passing yards, you probably did well over on PrizePicks. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. We are back. Locked On Ravens. Kevin Ostreicher with Mark Clayton talking Ravens football. Mark, we talked all about Todd Monken maybe being kept out, an eye for him, maybe Jets head coach, maybe another head coaching opportunity. But with the Jets firing Robert Saleh, a lot of people are saying, well, they don't really make sense for a Davante Adams situation anymore. But that apparently is not the case, as the reports coming out have been, well, that doesn't necessarily change the Jets' interest in Davante. New Orleans lost to Kansas City on Monday night. Apparently, maybe the talks have died down a tiny bit there, but also maybe the interest is still there. So there's so much we don't know. What we do know is Davante Adams went to Instagram and posted an Edgar Allan Poe picture, and everybody's going crazy because it's like, what else could you mean, Davante? What else are you meaning? When you saw that, Mark, was there any other thought that crossed your mind other than Baltimore, or was that just like, okay, we know what he's trying to say?
I don't. Edgar Allan Poe is he associated with any other organization in the league team?
No,
I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, and Davante's a sharp guy. I know. He's I don't know. I know he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. That was no surprise or that was as telling as I think it was meant to be.
Man, I think it's so funny just the way things have changed, obviously, just over the years and over the decades in the NFL, where even when you were playing, like the thought of just you going on social media, posting a picture and like maybe letting your desires be known about something, like how crazy is that to think about now versus when you played and everything that was going on?
Yeah, that's a whole nother world, man. Just the social actual engagement. And I'm, going in and playing ball for me was something that, I enjoyed. It kind of putting the helmet on kind of allowed me to be in a space and not be connected. And just kind of be in this world that is not, my everyday life, and enjoy and love that. Off the field, it was like when you have to do an event or an engagement or show up somewhere and do an appearance or something like that, that was the social engagement, with the fans or with the public and, things like that. It was not right here on the cell phone. Like, it was not on Facebook or Instagram or X, Twitter, at the time. And so today it's a powerful tool, I would say. In addition to what could be and at times work against you. But man, I enjoy it. The ability for fans now to engage with athletes and be a part of the story, truly, I think is really cool, especially for our fan base, because they are the reason why we get to do what we do, week in, week out. And so I think it's nice. I always look at, football as it's entertainment. It's like layers of it is wrestling, is WWE, WWF in some regard. And I think stories like this and kind of the emotional roller coasters that come with it present that, which I'm a fan of. And so it's cool. And then at the same time, I got my my team, and, my hopes that, hey, maybe we win the Davante Adams lottery in some way, shape, or however, money-wise, trade-wise, whatever that may be. Hopefully we are winner of that.
Yeah, it'd be, look, a trio of Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Davante Adams, you throw everybody else in there. You got Zay, Sean Bateman.
Oh my. Likely?
Yeah.
Ooh, man. Oh man. Yeah.
Just thinking about it, it's like this offense is already so hard to defend. You add Davante, like that pure vet star wide receiver one. You're looking at things like
literally always open.
That's a guy who we know he can run a route. We know he can catch the ball, and we know the big thing. He demands attention. That's the big thing with him. So when you already have a guy in Lamar who demands so much attention, you already have a guy in Derrick Henry who demands so much attention, then you bring in a Davante. If you stack the box, you leave Davante one-on-one. If you try to lighten that box and send help over, well, now you got to deal with Lamar and Derrick Henry running at you. And plus you got Mark, who obviously has had a slower start to the season. And I want to ask you about him, Mark, being a fellow OU guy, and him with his slow start to the year. The thing that I love about Mark's story before we get into the Davante updates, he's a team player. And he has echoed that so many times, where coming out of OU wasn't necessarily the biggest blocker in the world. He had some growing to do in that department, but he has worked so hard to get there. And now he has been graded out as one of the better blocking tight ends over multiple weeks this season. And so while the catches aren't always there for him, the receptions aren't always there for him this season, he's not putting his head down, and he's making sure that he's impacting the game in other ways. But what do you make about Mark's slow start? Is this a thing where is he on the decline for you, or is this just his role is a little different this year and he's still a stud? It's just he's being more of a team guy in his role as opposed to the main focal point.
Yeah, I mean, just watching, it doesn't, like, I actually don't see the explosiveness that we are so familiar with and used to, which, a big part of that is obviously injuries. They play into it. They affect you, and, even in your training, you're thinking like, man, I'm feeling good, I can run, I can do that, but getting into the real meat of it at times, it sometimes takes time to kind of find that rhythm back. Sometimes it takes a year, sometimes it takes a few games. But I'd just say, like, I know Mark has been a pro's pro. And so when it comes to doing whatever he has to do to help the team win ball games, he's always and will always do that. Now, him being a playmaker, I think is something that definitely has to come over time. And maybe it is something from a physical standpoint that is going to take some getting used to and rebuilding that explosiveness into his game.
Yeah. But again, he's still a star in this league. And I think, when you talk about tight ends, he is still one of the best. It's just a matter of also teams are defending him and they know that they have to defend him. And he got back to the party a little bit in that Cincinnati game, had 4 catches. So Mark with some big catches in that game. But again, it's like you have Lamar, who's a star quarterback, Derrick Henry, who's a star running back. You'd have Davante in this situation, who'd be a star receiver, Mark Andrews, who's a star tight end. The stars all across that offense. But there have been varying reports, Mark, about just where the Ravens are in this whole thing. Some people are like, oh, the Ravens are a front runner. They're interested. And apparently one of the favorites. Peter Schrager of Good Morning Football ended up saying there's no interest at all, according to what he's heard. And then The Athletic has said, well, there have been check-ins, but there's not really any information. It's unknown whether Baltimore's still actively looking looking at his services. We know the money'd be a big factor here. Davante due about $36 million in base salary plus workout bonuses over the next 2 seasons. There probably have to be some level of help on the Raiders' part, help on Davante's part, or just something along those lines to get him to the team, because Baltimore, Mark, does not have a lot of cap space to work with. But I just think that the opportunity here with this offense, I don't think it's necessarily super realistic, but just thinking about it, it's like if there's any sliver of possibility to go get Lamar, that guy that we've been talking about forever. You see Jalen Hurts getting A.J. Brown. You see Josh Allen get Stephon Diggs at the time. Kyler got DeAndre Hopkins and Marquise Brown from Baltimore. Not that Zay's not a stud himself, because he absolutely is. But it's just that pairing of Davante and Zay together. So if the money could work.
Good. Yeah.
If the money could work, I assume you're all on board.
Yeah, I think, I mean, and, you know, you have to go back and look at the lay of the land and the past Super Bowl champs and, you know, who their number one guy was. It wasn't an elite premier receiver. And so, I mean, and so I'm like, part of it is like, yes, I think, you know, having somebody like that, but then there's the chemistry piece too. It's, you know, these teams that you kind of assemble somewhat of an all-star squad, and then the chemistry doesn't quite work out. Locker room, you know, relationship isn't quite what it needs to be to make a Super Bowl championship squad. And I'm like, well, yes, but then at the same time, the relationship, the chemistry, the rhythm that we have with the guys that we have in the locker room right now is so good, and to me, getting better. And we have a long season ahead, and so there's a lot more to learn about them. That has, to me, Super Bowl potential as well. So even if you know Davante isn't in the mix and that doesn't become a thing, I still like we're good with what we got. We really are. We play really good defense. We play all 3 phases of the game. Really good defense. Special teams so solid. It's good to see Tuck come through. You know, clutch late in game. And then on offense, we know we're knowing more who we are and leaning into that. And I think that is a real formula for Super Bowl success.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you said that, Mark, because I'm in agreement with you. If Davante does not come to Baltimore, it is not the end of the world. This team is still talented enough to win a Super Bowl, 1,000%. They have the tools. They absolutely do. And, you know, you're talking about a receiving group that, you know, in terms of star names, right? Zay's not like a Justin Jefferson star name or a Davante Adams star name, but he's a really good player. Rashad Bateman has stepped up in his role this year, and I think Rashad Bateman's played excellent. I think this has been the best year of his career so far. Tons of timely catches. And plus, I know there's always the conversation in this offense. John Harbaugh's been vocal about it. If it does take a specific type of wide receiver in the way the Ravens offense is set up to want to come to Baltimore and succeed here, then that's just the reality of it. But this has never been a Lamar thing. It's just the way the offense is, but that's okay because they're a run-first team that has found success, and the receivers that are in this offense seemingly have bought into it, and that's the most important part. Now, I think Davante would buy into it. There are clips of him saying that he would possibly prefer to go 800-900 yards in a Super Bowl as opposed to 1,700 with the way his career has gone. And again, that's great. But it'd be a lot of hoops to jump through. It's not impossible. But I just think with the way that the cap space is set up, maybe it's just they roll with what they have or get maybe a DeAndre Hopkins. Maybe a Hopkins. What do you feel about like a DeAndre Hopkins?
Maybe a Hopkins. Yeah. No doubt.
That'd be a guy. Maybe him, Cortland Sutton, like those two. Would those two move a needle for you, or are you all on Davante Adams or nothing?
No, I think a veteran, sure-handed presence, I think fits what Baltimore does because a part of that is like you said, you know, Davante being at this point in his career where you know you could see him being content with 800 yards, legit Super Bowl shot, getting to the Super Bowl and winning it. Similar with the other guys where it's like, man, you want somebody to come in, like, first of all, mentally be tough. And then on top of that, understand like, hey, you're not going to get quite the opportunities that you did anywhere else. But when it does come, it has to count. Somebody I think who's been in the league and worn and had their time or moment or whatever that comes in, like Anquan Boden did, and understands that role, that receiver, getting in there, get some blocks and getting dirty and, you know, just being a complete receiver. I think those guys fit the bill where they could come in and they could be reliable in, you know, in clutch situations where you may get, you know, 4 to 5 attempts, in a game versus 14 or 15 attempts or, and so, yeah, I'm not opposed to either of the veteran guys that we know to be, sure-handed receivers that could come through for us in the clutch and make big plays and big-time moments. Not at all. But it has to make sense. And EDC, it will only make sense if one of them is because it makes sense.
Yeah. Again, this team will never just throw draft capital away to throw it away. They're not going to make a trade to make a trade just to do it. They're calculated and smart with it, Mark. So you know that if they make a deal, there has to be an impact that they know is coming. So that's exactly what it is. But we still have a lot to dive into in the final part of the show. Coming up, we have to talk about that Ravens and Bengals game because it was just so crazy. We'll put a bow on that win and then also look ahead because there is a bright young star at quarterback coming to Baltimore in Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders. So be sure to stay tuned. A lot to still get to here on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So for the Ravens and Bengals game, if you had a bunch of different categories, I mean, look, offensive shootout, right? So Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, if you picked over on them, probably living large over on FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, Land of Hope, and so much more. So if you're into economics, maybe you want an introduction to Free Market Economics would be a great introduction course, but also Economics 101, the principles of free market economics could be another one. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. We are back. Our final segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Ostreicher and Mark Clayton chopping it up with you here today on Wednesday. Mark, the Ravens and Bengals game, I know we talked about it briefly in the first part of the show, but one of the crazier games that we've seen in the Lamar Jackson era, and there have been a few of those, but the play that everybody is talking about and kind of encapsulates Lamar's day, and I know you know what I'm talking about already, is that Isaiah Likely touchdown. He fumbles, bobbles the snap, picks it up, runs to the sideline, stiff arms Sam Hubbard like 4 times, and then delivers a ball right in between like 3 defenders.
A dot.
That play, again, there are a lot of plays you could talk about as, this is Lamar's best of his career. Given the time in the game, the moment that it was, and kind of how he was playing, I have it up there is the best. But when you're watching that play unfold, what are you thinking? What are the emotions you're going through? Because there were like 10 different things I felt in the span of like 5 seconds.
So, that, like, first of all, it was just like a fumble in the red, oh my God. But then it was like, this dude is so composed. He doesn't panic. And it's like, again, going back to that final drive in the season opener. The game wasn't awesome. It was up and down. And then here we are this season. To me, this season is about finishing games. And here we are in this situation, and where it looks to be a catastrophe, turns into something immaculate. And so, again, Lamar's composure will be the story of the season. It will be the story of the Super Bowl. And when I watched that was just another confirmation of the fact that, man, he's matured in such a way. I mean, we know he's a game play, a baller. Like, he's going to make plays, and he does that. But it's just something about finishing a ball game that we just hadn't been able to do to get there and win it. And I just feel like this year he's there. Like, for whatever reason, he's there. And that was that composure was, I mean, that's championship composure.
Yeah. It's an encapsulation of what that game was for him. I mean, Lamar kept that game within 10 points. It was 3 points and 10 points, 3 points, then 10 points. And Lamar never let it get out of hand, which I thought was one of the reasons they won it, because when that game spirals on you, it can spiral fast. And Lamar never let it ever get to that point. And man, the thing that encapsulates it all.
And Joe Burrow played the best game of his career, arguably. Like that it was lights out. I mean, and that pressure was on, and it was on. I mean, they got the ball, they were going to be in position to score, or they were scoring. Period.
Yeah.
So that was big. That was big.
Man, it is unbelievable. Like, that was one of the quarterback battles. I think, Mark, we're so used to, especially with the Ravens-Steelers rivalry, those like 13-9 slugfest games defensively. This was the 41-38 offensive shootout with two offenses and defenses that couldn't stop a thing on there until late in the game where the Ravens did it. So you're right. Got to give Joe Burrow his credit for this one, 100%. Both quarterbacks played really well. Both had one critical turnover. But again, the Ravens were just able to out-execute the Bengals down the stretch. In my opinion, the one that I loved the most, I mentioned it earlier, was Rashad Bateman. Rashad Bateman was that guy. And I thought that the catches he came up with were clutch. He was separating at the line, one of the best separators in the league. And for me, it's so great because we know he signed that contract extension. I think he's playing just free football because of it. He's not looking over his shoulder. He's not wondering what his future is. Is that a big part of it to you, where he now has security and he's able to play just a bit more loose out there?
I believe so. I mean, it was a beautiful thing to see, him kind of go through the really rough part and be beat up because he didn't have those numbers, or him, basically numbers. And then to see the organization stand behind him and tell him, like, no, like we see what you do on the back end. We see where you at. We know who you are, and we trust you. And then to see him, feel that confidence and support, and then turn the, lights come on, and here we are. Who is this kid? Like, who is this guy? And it's like, for them, it's like, this is bait. This the bait. Like, this is the guy we knew we had from the beginning. And for us, it's like, wow, like that's all he needed was to get the bag. But no, that gives you a level of support, and that encourages you, that feeds you. And I don't know. I think we're seeing him play really free and comfortable, and he's finding his rhythm. And Lamar obviously is trusting him, and it's a really good thing. Because I'll say that watching last year, he had. I remember just kind of seeing him, run routes and be open. Like, he was open quite a bit. It just wasn't coming his way for whatever reason. But here we are, him just sticking to it, and now he's taking advantage of the opportunity that he has.
Yeah, it's been huge. And, Lamar spreads the ball now around 9 different receivers in this Bengals game, where before Mark, it was just like, all right, Mark Andrews is down there somewhere. Let me chuck this thing up and see if he can come down with it. But now
it doesn't matter.
Exactly. Now it's all right, take what's there. And I love that personally, because I think it's an evolution in Lamar's game. But for Rashad, it's never been a talent issue for him. It's been just, can you stay healthy and get that chemistry? And we're seeing that so far this year. But let's look ahead. Week 6, Jaden Daniels coming to Baltimore. Lamar Jackson versus Jaden Daniels. Man, Jaden has looked incredible. He's been unreal. It's a game that, look, nobody really had circled on the calendar, Mark, leading up to this game early in the offseason. It was like, okay, the Ravens will probably handle business, and that'll be that. Man, it's a whole different atmosphere now that we're in week 6. What do you think about the matchup of Lamar versus Jaden Daniels and that whole conversation?
I love it. Jaden is a young Lamar that can spin it better than Lamar early. His long ball is it's impressive. It really is impressive. But this matchup we'll look at this matchup, and I think years from now, be like, wow, like, we've seen two of the most elusive quarterbacks that are also it's like the best of both worlds. Like, most quarterbacks are elite passers, or a lot of quarterbacks are elite passers that are that has been Super Bowl winners. I think these two guys got some Super Bowls in them, and it's both. It's elusiveness, legs, and his arm talent. Lamar has grown tremendously with his throwing capability and his reading, going through progressions, and like you said, he had 9 different receivers. A lot of that has to do with being more comfortable in the pocket, keeping your eyes down the field, and knowing where everybody was going to be and making the throw. Jaden is doing that, and he's doing it at a high clip early. And with the running game that they have, that's also protecting him and taking a lot of pressure off of him. It's going to be a ball game, man. That they got a defensive front too that is opportunity. They're feisty and strong. It's going to be a ball game. Another one. I wouldn't be surprised if it's similar to what we just saw last weekend. In some regard, hopefully they're not putting up 38 more points. But I think we're going to get after it. We're going to put pressure on him, and we'll see how he responds.
One heck of a ball game coming up for sure. I mean, look, I'm with you. We might look back on this matchup in a couple of years and be like, this was the first installation of two elite quarterbacks when these two teams face off again. What, maybe in 3-4 years, or maybe in the Super Bowl a couple of years down the line if Washington can accelerate that rebuild a little bit. Who knows,
maybe.
Man?
What I'm looking at, I'm like, that. Whoa. There's a lot of upside there. There's a lot of upside there.
DMV Super Bowl would do a lot of good for a lot of people.
Oh, that would be so cool. That would be so cool.
I would absolutely love it. But Mark, appreciate you as always for taking the time, hopping on. How you feeling about the Sooners this weekend?
Likewise, Kev. I got us winning by 3. I got us kicking a field goal to win. The upsets continue.
All right, hey.
He's at the Cotton Bowl.
Hey man, let's go. I'm with it. I'm 100% with it. But man, appreciate you as always. Mark, got anything you want to shout out?
Man, holla. We're launching liveaudio.com. We are on the verge of launching the sexiest over-ear headphone on the market. And so hit us up, man. liveaudio.com.
All right, there it is. Again, liveaudio.com. But Mark, appreciate you. Thanks so much for hopping on. And thank you to everybody for tuning in today on this episode of Locked On Ravens. Coming up tomorrow, more Ravens coverage for you. So be sure to stay tuned. We'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.